Hello and welcome back to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We're going to take a look at the phaser, and we're going to use Spire today to just generate a little bit of sound, and we're going to use the phaser in different ways to shape sound or create movement and interest, and that's essentially what a phaser does. We use that for movement, and it also gives that nice effect, especially in trance. If you look at the early 2000s and the late 1990s, you're going to get that plucked phase sound. It's going to be used on pads, it's going to be used on basses, and it just sounds really nice, and it defined trance in that early stages. Well, to me, it did, and this is why the phaser is got a little bit of a special place in trance. And before we get started, if you have any phaser tips and tricks that you use, let us know down in the comments. I'm sure everybody will be happy to go and investigate those ways and methods that you might use. Also, it really does help if you hit the like button and the subscribe with the bell icon so you get notified as soon as I upload. A whopping 74% of you are not subscribed, and it does help the channel progress and keep me doing these videos for you guys. Let's get started on the phaser. So you can see here we have 1 through 6 stages and then vowel, low, mid and high. And these are simply one phaser, 2 phasers, up to 6 stacked on top of each other, so you get more of a wacky sound. And then the vowels are those talking aspects, so you can choose between low, mid and high. So let's use some presets and let's have a look at some of these. So you can get this preset pack from my website. You can head over to www.demishellen.com/shop and you can get these presets. I'll leave the link on screen now for you. I'm going to jump into a pad, so let's go to On My Own. Great sound, no phasing on there, so let's have a listen to what the phaser does. So we'll put one stage on and we'll turn the dry wet up full so you can hear what's going on. Oh, not much is happening at the moment, so let's turn up the frequency. And what this does is control where the points are moving to and from in the frequency spectrum. So that was too low, so we're going to turn it up so it's in the low mid region. Feedback is the intensity of that frequency movement. Spread is your stereo. Rate is how fast it's moving back and forth. Depth is how much of that rate that you hear. And then dry wet is how much of you hear of the overall thing. And pre, we'll look at that in a second. There we have it. You can hear that movement just using a one stage phaser, just one phaser there, and you get that movement. We set the rate to pretty slow, so it sweeps through really slowly and it matches the speed of how the pads are played. Mute this. There is no movement. And obviously we've got that set to pretty much maximum on everything. You can make it more subtle if you wish to do so. But if we add 6 stages, you're going to get 6 phasers laid on top of each other, and it's going to sound more crazy. And if we up the frequency, so it's modulating more of the higher range of frequencies. Get that wispy, smoky sound that sounds like it's very distant and futuristic. It really depends on what you're trying to create, but you can create some really nice things. Now we can add vowels in here as well, and now you'll get more of that talkative vibe. And you enter the choir territory. Make that more obvious. Let's increase the rate so it's moving back and forth quicker. So you can create some really interesting sounds, and that is why we'd use a phaser. There's a few ways that we can change the way the phaser operates. We can use the pre button here, and we can also use some of the envelopes and steppers and things like that in here as well. So let's take a look at pre first. So what does pre do? We have the shaper first, through to the phaser, and then so on to the end of the chain. That's how it flows through Spire. And what pre does is moves the phaser to the front of the chain, so the shaper then starts to shape the sound of the phased signal, which gives dramatic and drastically different results. Now, we're not using it on here, but for this demonstration, let's just put this on to hard. We've got a nice gritty sound now, but if we put the pre on whilst it's playing, you'll hear the difference. It gets grittier, it gets harsher. Now this would probably work better on making a bass preset, for example, because you want something a bit harder hitting and a bit grittier. But what this is doing is shoving the phaser before that shaper, so then the phase sound is actually distorted rather than the sound distorted and then phased, which gives you different results depending on the style of preset that you're creating. So how can we tie this using it with, say, an envelope? And I think what's best is to show you on a bass preset. That will do. And we've got a bass preset already set here. So let's add the phase on. And say that's where we are happy with our sound. We can turn the dry wet down so there is no sound whatsoever, and we can use envelope 4, it's free at the moment, and we can send this to the phaser dry wet. We can just use the decay here, the same as the other one, and we can have the amount set to full so we hear that full effect. So we can have more of the original sound, and we have a little bit of phase coming in, or we can have more. Control it without having to use the dry wet and have it having more signal flow going through it and sounding really over the top. We can make it a little bit more subtle. Another way that we can use this is we can jump into a stepper and we can use the pattern of this stepper as well. So I'm not going to go and program anything in here, we'll just use it as it comes. And we're going to set this to 16 so it's rolling at a decent speed. And we'll go into the matrix here, and you can see we're already using stepper 2 there for the main volume in this sound, but let's go to stepper 1. And then down here, we'll go to the phaser again, and we'll increase the feedback. We'll turn the feedback down, we'll increase this to full so you can hear exactly what it's doing, and let's play that through. Turn this off. That adds a sparkly top texture. That's something you might be looking for. If you're not, that's probably not what we're going to do, but you can get some interesting results. And you can see that's set to 16ths and it's running pretty fast at the moment. But if we set that to a different speed, get different results, or we can create different patterns where we have it rising and falling. And finally, I just want to look at one more thing. If we pick a pluck, things that have lots of reverb tend to sound really good with a phaser on. So let's just pick a preset. That is pluck. I'm just going to pick something that's a little bit more washed with reverb. I think Nebula is. Always loved that sound when I was creating that one. Really, really nice sound. So we're going to use the phaser, turn this up. We'll set the frequency to the low mids. Let's set the feedback high. Crazy. Now let's turn that up and turn the feedback down a bit. Let's turn up the feedback a little bit more. A bit higher and get that frequency a bit higher. can hear there's movement in there and it sounds really nice. And we can have more movement in the lower portion if we wanted to. Set that to 1 stage. It's not as interesting on, say, the frequency and resonance part of it. It just gives you a bit of movement. How that is going to generate movement, interest, and make the sounds sound a little bit more interesting. And that's how I would use a phaser. It's not really just to give you a preset or a way of creating a good sound every time. It's something that makes you think about how you're making your sound, how to manipulate an existing preset like we're doing now. And that brings us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.